Let's face it, in our busy lives, we don't eat enough fruits and vegetables. In fact, according to the CDC, only 1 in 10 Americans are eating the recommended daily amount of fruits and vegetables each day, missing out on essential vitamins, minerals, fibers, and antioxidants. And that's where Balance in Nature comes in. Balance in Nature sources only the best produce, free from pesticides, heavy metals, and harmful bacteria. And Balance in Nature is the best fruit and vegetable product on the market. They use only fresh, whole fruits and vegetables inside each capsule. They don't use any GMOs, fillers, binding agents, or preservatives of any kind. You're getting real food, real science, real nutrition. I would never endorse a product that I don't use myself, and since using Balance in Nature, I feel more alert, I have more energy, my focus is sharper, and I feel great. Live life to the fullest and choose Balance in Nature. And guess what? P.A.S. Report listeners can get 35% off the first preferred order. Start getting the recommended daily amount of fruits and vegetables you need by using code PAS at balanceofnature.com.
Welcome to the P.A.S. Report Weekly Roundup Podcast. The P.A.S. Report provides an honest analysis on the critical issues that matter to you without the biased media filters. Here's your host, Professor Nicholas Giordano.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the P.A.S. Report Podcast. This is your host, Nick Giordano. I hope you had a great weekend out there. I hope you were able to get away from all the news and the noise, because if you watch too much, you get depressed. And I understand that because there's so much going on. I mean, last week I explained how Communist China may see this as their best opportunity to dethrone the United States as the world superpower, and that we may soon witness them trying to make good on one of their most important strategic objectives by attempting to recapture Taiwan. Now, some out there will say it's not our fight, we should mind our own business, but I don't think people realize how important Taiwan is. It's not the Ukraine. Even more important is actual control over the Pacific. We have controlled the Pacific for the last 7 decades, making sure that shipping lanes remain open and free from threats. If China gets control of the Pacific, they have the power to control the global economy. They have the power to determine what goods move throughout the world. Unfortunately, we are at our weakest point, and there are many questions about what a conflict would look like given the current state of our military. Communist China continues to saber rattle, and they have announced they are now suspending dialogue with us on issues ranging from energy, the military, anti-drug efforts. That last one, anti-drug efforts. I mean, that made me laugh. China has become the largest producer of fentanyl. In fact, I think the number is over 90% of all fentanyl comes from China, and the communist authorities have done nothing to stop the flow of fentanyl, especially over the last couple of years. It's a poison that's killing tens of thousands of young Americans, destroying families throughout the United States. So obviously, this is a situation we have to watch closely, see how it develops, because it certainly has far-reaching implications. But we also need to focus on what's happening here at home. There are so many out there who want to destroy our culture and remake it into something unrecognizable. And when you speak out against that, you're silenced, you're shamed, you're threatened that you're going to be canceled. The woke lunacy is a path towards national suicide. It's why I'm bringing in A.J. Rice. A.J. is the CEO of Publius PR and the author of the brand new book, The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead has it all. It lays out the nature of what these loons want to do. It exposes the hypocrisy. And at the same time, it's going to give you a bunch of laughs because you cannot make up some of the stuff that we're witnessing. Now, before I bring on AJ, make sure you hit the follow button so you never miss an episode of this podcast. Also, go to the PAS Report website, pasreport.com, sign up for the newsletter, check out the show notes. And with that out of the way, I want to bring in AJ Rice, CEO of Publius PR, author of the book, The Walking Dead. AJ, so glad to have you here. How are you today?
Nick, pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad you're on because I've been going through this book and you really cover just about every possible topic that one could think of and the craziness that's going on in our world today. So can you explain to the audience what led you to write The Walking Dead?
Well, it basically we were dealing with 2 viruses, one that escaped the lab in China and one that escaped the lab here from Karl Marx's dream, and that is wokism. And I felt that although the pandemic, was a system of control, the way they were really going to try to change our behavior is the other virus. And it comes in many forms: cancel culture, CRT, safe spaces, the pronoun mafia. So I wanted to try to cover how we've been sort of put through this, soft authoritarianism here, not always coming from Democrats either, sometimes coming from Republicans, and make the case that the true virus, the true threat to our culture to our just sort of basic meat and potatoes way of life, how we, had ordered the universe here for about 230 years, was under assault from all sides. And it had some big time help, financed help, and philosophical help from a lot of the pillars of our culture.
And can you explain the financed help for a lot of people? Because a lot of people don't realize that this is an organized and coordinated effort that's been underway for quite some time.
Well, look, the NBA, which is, a $1 billion association. I mean, look, I tell people you can vote with your feet and vote with your wallet, right? But if corporations, whether it's Disney pushing what they want to push, sports leagues like the kneeling in the NFL and painting Black Lives Matter on the basketball court in the NBA, Coca-Cola. I mean, we can go down a whole at Levi's firing people. These corporations, I don't think they feel like that they're beholden to their shareholders. I think they're scared to death of their mid-level Generation Y and Generation Z executives and workers. I mean, Netflix puts out a Dave Chappelle comedy special. He's not exactly Ben Carson or Walt Williams or Thomas Sowell. He makes a few cracks about, and quite frankly, your African-American audience should actually ask this question, makes a couple cracks about how, it's taken black people 400 years to get certain rights. And for some reason, the LGBTQ mafia got it in about 4 minutes. How did that happen?
Because they're the loudest voices and they hijack
Netflix
it.
erupts. Yeah, Netflix erupts, and they're protesting their own place of work because of jokes. So look, the corporations, they're scared to death, and they're funding a lot of this. They give money away. I mean, they give money to crazy organizations that are in the streets. It gets washed through, quote, charities, and it gets washed through, NGOs and nonprofits. But, somebody's paying for the bricks for Antifa to throw.
Basically, legal money laundering. That's what they're involved in. And you bring up such a great point with the mid-level, middle managers that exist in all these companies and the human resources departments. And I sit there and I wonder, like, when did the employees dictate to the company what the priorities are as opposed to the board of directors and the profits dictating where the company goes? It's amazing. But as far as this woke virus, we see how quickly it could actually destroy something. That the minute it infects it, and you talk about this in your book, that the minute it infects something, it could destroy it. And we're seeing it today with our military. Oh,
absolutely. And Air Force General Spaulding, I don't know whether you saw, he gave me a blurb for the book, and and I've worked with, we do a lot of military books here at the PR firm, and we did Matthew Lohmeyer's book, and he was at Space Force. He wrote a book about how, and I wrote about it too, about what he went through, and basically that the military is being turned into the humanities department at like Sarah Lawrence College. I mean, it's being turned into this kooky petri dish where all your woke hopes and dreams can come alive. And, we're paying for transition surgeries. I mean, I've got members of the military in my family. They are being put through a sort of trans education course where, someone that used to be a man or woman shows up, I'm not sure what they are now, and basically talks down to the room. Now, these are officers.
Well, don't forget about the maternity flight suits also.
Yeah, that. I mean, you see what's going on in their teaching. I mean, it's a top look. The fish rots from the head, right? So General Milley's worried about Mr. General White Rage. He's worried about white rage, right? I guess at the 7-Eleven, when they're out of, Philly Blunt cigars and Gatorade. But the reality is that this is a systemic problem. Obama accelerated it. Trump basically acted as, a finger in the dam for 4 years and disrupted the flow of craziness. And now they're back at it. I mean, I basically tell people, we're dealing with Hussein in the membrane. When they got back at the Oval Office, they all ran back to their former desks from 8 years. The funny thing, of course, and it's not to say one version of Obama is worse than another, but in some ways, the really talented Obama people all got their jobs in the first term, the second term. We're now dealing with the backbencher, third string hacks whether it's Merrick Garland or some of these other schmucks that are around the president. I mean, these people were the people that were next in line, but they weren't good enough to be first string or second string under Obama. So now we're dealing with third string Obama. Susan Rice, are you kidding me? The woman who lied about Benghazi on 5 television Sunday morning shows. No relation, by the way. And I would just say that, with the military, it really is a shame. It's a shame because the one thing the military is supposed to be is just that flag on your arm. You're not defined by your skin color, your gender, who you go to bed with at night. You're defined by your oath to the Constitution and the flag on your arm. Keep it at that. Just keep it at that, So, and they're not. They want it again. It's turning into the humanities department. It's getting crazy.
And it's coming at the worst possible time. I mean, when we look at it, it's not like it's, 35 years ago where we're on top, we're the pinnacle of power and nobody could really challenge us. This is coming. We're destroying our military at the time where the threats are growing overseas. And you brought up China before with the Wuhan virus and the NBA. It amazes me that we have China making threats at the Speaker of the House, blowing her out of the sky, and yet nobody goes to the NBA and says, hey, what's your thoughts on that? Are you going to still bow down to the communist masters?
Exactly, 100%. So, he's a good friend of mine, and I'll just read it to you. So General Spaulding, who's a China expert and worked, he was on the NSC for Trump for a short period of time, basically says this, and this is his endorsement of the book. He says, like all American weaknesses, China loves wokism. And then he gives me some nice words. Look, if I were China, if I were the mullahs of Iran, if I were Putin, obviously, Little Kim, Rocket Man, if I were any one of these villains that you need to, check every once in a while, it's kind of like throwing a fastball up in the grill of a batter. Move their feet. They're a little too close to the plate. Move their feet. You think this guy in the White House can move the feet of some of these dictators? No way. This is a free for all.
Well, it's clear they have no fear of him and they don't respect him at all.
No fear whatsoever. None.
And that's the concerning aspect.
I'm glad Zawahiri's, I guess in the bathtub with Osama bin Laden now. But this whole thing. I don't know what's going on. I do know that when Democrats' poll numbers drop, we kill major league terrorists. I do know that.
It's interesting that happens, right?
It's funny, the poll numbers are in the crapper, and the Democrats are about to get slaughtered in November. General, go find me a win. Let's go find a win. I need a win.
But they're still not getting the wins. That's a set. Listen, the Zawahiri thing, obviously it's a good thing. Americans celebrate that, but that's a 2-day story that's going to go away. The reality is the economy and gas prices, those are the things that are going to remain with us. What happens with China? Now, when it comes to China, I find it very odd, not very odd. I know why it happens, but as far as Democrats and Republicans, the amount of silence when it comes to pushing back against China, how has China infiltrated like all aspects of our society?
They have. Pompeo and Trump shut down some of these basically communist think tanks that we had on these colleges, or I think they were called Confucian Institutes.
Yes.
They're there. But what's crazy is they're buying up all kinds of other things. They're using the free market, I guess, the unchecked aspects of the free market against us, whether it's buying up farmland, buying up housing developments in Florida and Nevada and some of these other places. They're totally invested. Basically, they want us to be the customer, right? To the point where we're so over leveraged, we can't do anything in any other sector of national security, whether it's in hard power or soft power, because we owe them, because they're the giant communist credit card we keep using. So that's the plan. And the thing about them versus, say, some, European foe of the past, they're way more patient. They don't need to win tomorrow. They'll win later. I've got authors that we work with. They know Xi. People that went to college with Xi. They were like his roommates. Got a guy, I should get him on with you. He ran the jade stone operations in and out of China for years. He writes books, and he's got this gold mine in the South Pacific. And he is a China expert and very insightful. And he says to me, There's, a 10-year plan, and then there's a 100-year plan. So they're executing it.
But I think what's frustrating is that you don't have to be a genius to figure this stuff out. I mean, when you look at one of your biggest adversaries, if not the biggest adversary, the biggest competitor to you, and you allow them to buy farmland and have a stake in your food supply system, like, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that that may not end well, it might not be the best idea. So how's about we prevent that from happening? Unfortunately, everyone allows it and it goes on. I mean, even down to Bill Gates, moving away from China. Bill Gates is buying up farmland. Here's a guy that says the people shouldn't be eating meat, that we should depopulate the planet, and yet he's allowed to buy farmland. How does that work?
No, he's a full-blown, Dr. Strangelove.
And someone that visited Epstein Island many, many times.
Yeah, and then there's that, right? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's really turned himself into, intentionally or not. I mean, he's obviously a villain, and again, trying to use his wealth not to some of these guys. Look, none of these guys are wonderful, upstanding people, But I'm not against accumulation of wealth. The question is, how are they using their money? Some of them are letting genies out of the bottle, maybe messing around with artificial intelligence. Some of them just want to go to the moon or fly to space commercially. But others, they're really becoming the technocrats in how to change our behavior. That's where their $1 billion is going towards. Like you said, artificial meat. It's just insane. And it's all predicated on, climate change. So these great, brilliant ones, they've been convinced of that. I could line up 100 scientists from the CO2
they'll
Coalition
buy houses on waterfront properties.
Yeah. Well, right, exactly. So, but no, I mean, absolutely. When it comes to China, and I think, I don't think anything's going to really happen to Pelosi. So I guess she's calling their bluff, because she was flying to Taiwan, flew to Taiwan. So, I mean, look, the reality is they want to control our entertainment. Got people apologizing to them if they say something wrong. Like that former wrestler with the Fast and Furious movie, his name escapes me, but
John Cena. That was
they've got our entertainment wrapped up. Yeah, they've got our sports wrapped up, their entertainment wrapped up. They're after our education systems. They're after our food supply. They're stealing technology from our defense industry every day. And look, people ask me all the time, I mean, what would you do if Donald Trump was the president and he was railing against China every day, destroying your economy with winning a trade war? I mean, what would you do if you were going to go down? Would you take the whole ship with you? I don't know. I mean, would you put a bunch of people on planes that were infected with a virus? Maybe. Maybe.
Well,
you might.
I mean, listen, China is very sophisticated in their approach, but we also have a lot of dumb people out there and people that buy into this. Like President Biden's approval ratings are still at like 32%. And I'm like, who's the 32%? Who is it? I know the wealthy elite. All right. They're about 1 or 2% that support him.
I can answer that. The Woking Dead. That's who they are.
Well, actually, it's funny you bring that up.
They follow a reanimated corpse that you and I call president.
It is a reanimated corpse. And you're so right. You call it like the funeral president. And that's what he is.
Yeah, the funeral home president. That's
in
right.
Section 3 of your book, you talk about the Democrats and blackface. And it amazes me that, they constantly accuse Republicans and conservatives of being racist. Yet they're the ones always caught doing racist things like blackface, whether it's Governor Northam in Virginia or the former governor.
Yeah, that's who I was talking about. My former governor. I mean, look, you can get away with anything if you're a Democrat governor of Virginia. You can be in a Klan outfit or in blackface, which he was one of them because it was his yearbook.
Yeah, and he says, I don't remember which one I was.
His nickname, by the way, in that yearbook was Coon Man. Can you imagine if Ron DeSantis is West Point yearbook or something? Can you imagine if he had a nickname like that?
I could guarantee you we wouldn't
Abbott.
be talking about him today. That's for sure.
Oh my gosh, no, it would never. I mean, look, we have to be perfect. That's the thing. We have to almost be perfect. They, whether they're Gavin Newsom or whoever, they don't have to be perfect at all. They just need to be connected. They just need to be connected. They could be, the C students, people that have been lifetime politicians like Biden, been hanging around forever, never signed the front of a check, only signed the back. You and I have been paying for this guy to stay alive for 60 years.
But remember, he did go to jail in South Africa when he visited Nelson Mandela.
That's right.
Him and
You know what?
Corn
They told him, actually, when he went back into COVID lockdown, that's where he was.
The South African prison. He returned
They
to
put a cardboard cutout of Mandela in there. I'm sure he'll talk about it in another month, like that's what happened.
Well, that's the amazing thing. And they buy into it and they still get away with it. I mean, you look at Hillary Clinton, whether it's her private server, you look at the FBI and how they literally lied to the FISA court, manipulated evidence, no consequences. They're never held accountable for anything they do.
No, well, look, but here's the thing. Whether it's Bill Clinton or Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama, they were with it enough to be ideological and sinister, but they weren't shot. I mean, the thing about Biden is he's like a perfect vessel for all the sort of left-wing potpourri. It's like an old trash can that they're filling with all the left-wing tired garbage ideas that they could never get passed through because a Bill Clinton or a John F. Kennedy or Barack Obama might be like, let's not go a bridge too far here, right? So, I mean, Obama let the Bush tax cuts expire. He didn't renew them. And you could claim that the Obamacare was a tax increase in some ways. Funny thing, obviously, is they made the argument against it, then they made it for it in court because it was going to be found unconstitutional otherwise. But this guy, this is literally the American meat puppet. This person has no say whatsoever. He reads whatever's in that prompter like Ron Burgundy. It's an empty, like I said, it's an empty vessel with all the hopes and dreams of all the progressive groups that put him there are filling. And, he has no control. The people around him like, sign this, do that, say this, walk here.
But aren't most of the Democrats today the Walking Dead? I mean, and I'm talking about the ones that are constantly talking. You look at someone like Beto O'Rourke, you have him in the book. I mean, here's a guy that claims he ate dirt after he lost the election in 2020, I believe, or 2018. Like, if you eat dirt, you should never be allowed into elected office again, if that's what you do when you lose an election.
Well, did he put Hillary Clinton? Did he put Hillary Clinton's hot sauce on it? What did he do with it?
Yeah, but at least Hillary Clinton, we know she pandas all the time. Like, I love when she goes down south and all of a sudden she has like this southern drawl that she never has. It's amazing. Yeah. But at least it's not. Even she isn't as phony as someone like Beto O'Rourke or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or any of these phonies. I mean, just before you have. I mean,
Beto really is. Beto's. Yeah, exactly. Beto's he's the epitome of white privilege, just like Gavin Newsom, who's related to Pelosi. I think it's her nephew. But he also, what's funny is both Sandy Cortez and Beto O'Rourke, or I guess Robert Francis O'Rourke.
Yes.
I mean, they're allowed to get away with cultural appropriation. You and I can't. Like if for Halloween this year, I wanted to be Dr. J. I'm from Philadelphia. So for Halloween, I want to be Dr. J. I can't be Dr. J. I can't be Will Chamberlain or Charles Barkley or Allen Iverson. No. But Robert Francis O'Rourke can be, a skinny jeans wearing Latin man, apparently.
And Senator Warren could be a Cherokee Indian.
Yeah, exactly. So they're allowed to culturally appropriate. The Irish, the Italians, we need to go back to our corners and be quiet.
Yeah, well, that's the way it works. We got to sit down, shut up, because it's all about obedience and compliance now, right? You can't speak out against certain narratives or else we're going to target you.
That's right.
We're going to try and destroy your life. Even if you're just an ordinary person out there, it doesn't matter. They'll be on the target, and they want to create this fear. Where are the Republicans? And I'm not talking about the Ted Cruz's or the Senator Hawleys who do stand up and actually speak out, but I'm talking about the majority of Republicans, like saying, like, no, enough. You went too far. We're bringing it back to limited government. We're going to reorganize the federal government. We should do away with the FBI, give the marshals the mission. That would make more sense. Do away with Department of Education. Like, where are the Republicans fighting for their constituents, saying that their constituents are not domestic terrorists?
Well, look, there's a whole system in place, uniparty system, where everyone wants to eat, right? They've been here. the Mitch McConnell types. John Cornyn has morphed into one. In the House, you had Boehner all these years, and now you've got, McCarthy, you had Paul Ryan. I mean, look, there's a whole bunch of people that they consider their constituents government, not the people back in the district or in the state. So, they have to feed the beast. So they're not going to just strip mine some of these departments that shouldn't exist, So they're going to sign off on spending bills. I don't know. McConnell just got I was told old Foghorn Leghorn was a wily fox. He really did turn into Foghorn Leghorn with this Schumer bill that they got Manchin to sign off on. So, that's where they are. That's their deal. You cannot trust these people. They're some of this stuff, I say it all the time, is pro wrestling. It's fake. It's, they go after each other, send out a few tweets, pretend to be outraged, and then, go retreat back to wherever wherever they like to have their dinner alone. So, that's kind of what this is. A lot of this is pro wrestling.
It's so true, and that's why people need to be aware of who they're voting for, who they're putting in office. That's why we need a change. And AJ, I encourage everyone to read your book because not only do you learn something, but you also get to laugh along the way. And you need to laugh in this day and age because that's all we got left right now.
I totally agree. You got to hang a joke on someone. You can hang a deep thought on someone, but the joke will last longer.
It certainly will. And I want to thank you for coming on the P.A.S. Report.
Thank you, brother. I really appreciate it. Anytime.
I really enjoyed talking to AJ, and I'm telling you, read his book. You won't be disappointed. I have all the links up at the PAS Report website, pasreport.com, so check it out. As far as Wednesday's episode goes, I'm going to discuss what it means to be free. I'm not talking about what we think freedom and liberty means. I'm talking about what it actually means to have liberty. Unfortunately, today we have this warped view of what a free society is, so I'm going to break it down for you. And if you find the content of this podcast informative, please take 30 seconds, write a review on Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star rating. I want to thank you for joining me, and I'll be back on Wednesday with another great episode of the PAS Report podcast.
Thank you for listening to the PAS Report Weekly Roundup Podcast.
Have a good one. Bye.
Be sure to rate, share, and subscribe to the podcast so you'll never miss an episode. Also, visit PASReport.com and follow us on Twitter at PAS Report.